Nasa panig ng mga dukha, si Kristo manggagawa, Kristo manggagawa, Kristo manggagawa.
So, isang maganda at mapagpalang gabi sa inyo at sa ating lahat. Lubos namin kayong tinatanggap sa diskusyon na ito. So, gayon na rin, maraming salamat sa pagpapaunlak sa aming imbitasyon at upang makilala pa ang nasabing diskusyon, hayaan ninyong ipakilala ko sa inyo ang webinar na ito. Ito ay pinamagatang Sigaw ng Masa, Karapatan ng Manggagawa. Ito ay iikot sa diskusyon patungkol sa labor rights. So, ano nga ba itong diskusyon na to at bakit ito ang ginawa naming webinar sa araw na ito? So, the Human Rights and Social Justice as Center of Yakal Pilipinas, or the Youth for Active Citizenship and Leadership, is participating in the National Human Rights Consciousness Week. One of the events that will be featured is a webinar on Filipino laborers' rights. So, which will be address a variety of workers' problems and difficulties. So, Filipino laborers continue to battle challenges encompassing their employee rights as practical barriers to proper enforcement of Philippine labor laws. So, this event also aims to highlight the rights of Filipino laborers and seek understanding about the laws protecting workers while tackling the issues concerning the violation of their rights. So, what's the importance of knowing your rights as a worker? So, bilang isang manggagawang Pilipino, bukod sa ito ang pangunahing ikinabubuhay ng marami, kailangan din natin itong pagtuunan ng pansin. Bukod sa mga manggagawa, kailangan din natin itong mapakinggan. Kailangan din itong mapakinggan ng mga nagbabalak kumuha ng mga empleyado. Lalo na kung nagbabalak tayong magtayo ng isang mga business, ganun, tas kinakailangan natin ng mga tatao rito. Kailangan mapakinggan din natin ang ganitong mga klase ng webinar. Ano ba yung dapat nating gawin para sa ating mga empleyado? Ano ba yung dapat nating gawin para sa ating mga trabahador? Sa kung ano ang dapat at nararapat na makuha, matanggap o maranasan ng isang manggagawa. So, lumalalim na rin yung gabi at alam kong handa naman na ang lahat para sa panibagong kaalaman at isang napakamalamang diskusyon. Kaya wag na tayong magpatumpik-tumpik pa. Ask ko lang, nandiyan na po ba si si Attorney Luke? Ayun, so react lang po tayo. Ayan. So, ipapakilala na natin ang ating resource speaker sa araw na to. Excited na ba kayo? Feeling ko excited na kayo. Kailangan muna natin ng mga react sa inyo na nagmumula sa inyo. Ayan. So, para simulan nito, tong ating diskusyon, ipapakilala ko muna ang co-leader ng Yakal Pilipinas, ang mag-opening remarks sa araw na ito, sa mga oras na ito. Ayan, si Sir James Bama. Nandiyan na po ba kayo, sir?
Yes, nandito na ako, Miss Marga. Ayun, unang-una sa lahat, magandang gabi sa lahat. No? At nagpapasalamat ako sa magandang introduction ni Miss Marga. Pagpapasalamat sa mga dumalo muna sa atin, yung mga iba't ibang organisasyon na pumunta. Hindi ko man kayo ma-enumerate lahat. No? At salamat sa mga kabataan, sa mga gising na kabataan sa pagpunta. At higit sa lahat, ako ay nagpapasalamat kay Atty. Luke Espiritu sa kanyang pagdalo dito at pagbahagi mamaya ng kanyang malalim na kaalaman pagdating sa legal na aspeto ng karapatan ng mga manggagawa. Ngayon, gusto ko lamang i-highlight yung mga ilang bagay na kinakailangan nating tandaan, especially sa medyo hindi tumatakbong-takbo ng ating lipunan ngayon. No? Sabi nga ng mga iba't ibang eksperto, mas lalong lumalala yung takbo ng ating sistema. Titingin pa lang tayo sa mga komposisyon natin sa gobyerno, sa pamahalaan, medyo talagang kung ikukumpara natin sa kasaysayan ng ating mga naging politiko, ito na talaga so far yung pinaka-worst na lineup ng ating mga opisyales. At nakakalungkot sapagkat ang pinaka-maapektuhan ng ganitong klaseng komposisyon sa ating sistema ay yung mga pinaka-vulnerable na mga sektor, yung mga marginalized. So ano po ba yung mga marginalized sector na tinatawag natin? Diyan papasok yung mga kulang ang boses, kagaya ng mga manggagawa. At iba't iba ang mga manggagawa natin, no? Andiyan ang ating mga nurses, ang ating mga teacher, yung ating mga farmers, kahit anong uri ng mga manggagawa sa atin. At medyo nakakalungkot sa bansa natin sapagkat kung sino pa yung pinakapundasyon ng ating ekonomiya, sila pa yung hindi maganda ang ang nagiging trato ng ating sistema, 'di ba? Kaya nga yung mga naririnig natin na pag-romanticize sa resiliency ng mga Pilipino medyo off-putting siya, no? Kasi minsan talaga kadalasan sa lipunan natin, kahit anong sipag ng isang Pilipino, hindi niya talaga makuha yung kanyang mga pangarap sa buhay niya, no? Ako ay mahigpit na naniniwala sa paniniwala ni Aristotle, ng philosopher na si Aristotle, no? May sinabi siya doon sa kanyang libro na The Politics. Ang sabi ni Aristotle, ang pinaka-purpose ng estado ay hindi lamang para makasurvive yung kanyang mga mamamayan. 'Di ba? Sabi ni Aristotle, the purpose of the state is to provide that concept of good life sa mga mamamayan niya. Pag sinabi natin good life, ibig sabihin, dapat na nagagawang i-pursue ng mga mamamayan nila yung happiness na gusto nila sa atin. At one way na makuha natin or mapurso natin yung kasiyahan na hinahanap natin is kung maayos natin yung sistema. At one step para maayos yung sistema natin is kung magiging maayos yung trato sa ating mga manggagawa. Diba? At para magawa natin yun, kinakailangan natin maghalal ng mga tao na kayang kumontra sa sistema natin. Ayoko na masyadong daliman pa yung pinaka-opening remarks natin dahil yung ating inibitahan dito is talagang napakalalim ng kanyang kaalaman pagdating dyan. Again, muli ako nagpapasalamat kay Attorney Espiritu, hindi lamang sa pagpunta sa event na to, bagkus sa pagiging isa sa mga tunay na boses talaga ng mga taong nasa laylayan. Yan lamang po at maraming salamat po.
Ayun, thank you very much, Sir James. So, thank you for that wonderful speech, no? Kahit kakaunti lang yun, malaman at malaman talaga yung sinabi ni Sir James, lalong-lalo na patungkol ito sa mga manggagawang Pilipino natin. Kaya napakahalaga na mapakinggan natin ito at maalala, itanim natin ito sa ating isipan para sa mga susunod pang mga henerasyon o sa mga susunod pang mga taon, may apply natin ito sa sarili natin. Hindi lang sa sarili natin, kundi pati na rin sa ibang tao. Kaya, siguro start na natin. Ready na ba kayo? Handa na ba kayong makinig dito sa ating gagawing diskusyon? Parang kailangan ko ng mga reacts ng ating mga audiences. Yan, madami nang nakikinig. So feeling ko naman ready na ang lahat. Yan. Ayan, nakikita ko naman na yan. So, thank you for those virtual reaction. Maraming salamat po dyan. So, bago tayo magsimula, ipapaalala ko lang po yung iilan sa ating mga house rules. Yung ating mga tanong o yung mga questions natin ay later po siya i-entertain after ng ating discussion. So magkakaroon po tayo ng open forum at magkakaroon po tayo ng time for our questions. Alam ko naman kung marami kayong itatanong patungkol sa discussion na ating gagawin. Kaya later po after ng discussion, sasagutin po natin ito. And all throughout this whole webinar, sana po ay nakamute ang ating mga microphone, lalo-lalo na kung hindi naman po tayo magtatanong. Kaya we should pay respect to the speaker also. So ayun po, sana i-respeto po natin ang ating mga house rule at taningin po ito sa ating sarili. Ayun, so let's start na ba? Let's start na, no? So for this evening, ayan, papakilala ko ang ating resource speaker sa araw na ito. So, itong ating resource speaker for today, so he graduated at Ateneo de Manila University, having an undergraduate undergraduate degree of Communication Arts and finished law school also at the Ateneo de Manila University. He is also a Filipino lawyer, labor leader, and politician. He is the president of the Ukluran ng Manggagawang Pilipino, a board of trustees member in Freedom from Death Coalition, a former national president of Solidarity of Unions in the Philippines for Empowerment and Reforms or Super Federation. Lastly, a member of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines or the IBP. So he is no other than Attorney Renesio Luke S. Espiritu Jr. So let's give him a round of virtual applause.
Good evening. Naririnig ba ako?
Yes po, sir. Rinig po.
May problem lang ang video. Check ko lang ha kasi sira ang camera. Okay, sige. Okay lang ba na wala akong itsura? Medyo sira yung camera daw eh. Okay, so sige. Actually, natuwa ako doon sa opening remarks ni James, no? Because it encapsulates kung bakit kailangan ng mga kabataan ay makarelate sa mga issues ng manggagawa. And it is related really to society. Well, kung sinabi niyang philosopher was of the view na however we treat yung workers natin, it will also be the kind of society that we will have. Our society will be defined. Ito, paraphrase ko na lang yung idea na yun. Our society will be defined kung ano ang trato sa mga manggagawa. That is what you will get as the kinds of society that you have right now. And may relasyon ang oppression sa mga manggagawa, may relasyon yan na direktang relasyon sa kung anong itsura ng ating politika, kung ano itsura ng ating governance. Sino sa inyo ang gusto ang nangyayari sa Pilipinas? Na ang mga namamayagpag dito sa Pilipinas ay ang mga powerful na mga business owner din, mga asindero, property owners, and they get to define the kind of politics that we have. It is a politics devoid of any meaning, any relevance to our lives. Diba? When they talk about their own issues, it is irrelevant to the issues of the majority of the people. Tingnan nyo na lang ang intramurals between Marcos and Duterte. They talk about their competition for public office, lalong-lalo na in the context of 2028, kung sino ang susunod na presidente after Marcos. And ang mga yan nila is about yung power, how to divide power among themselves, the power, how the elite factions in our country divide power among themselves, and they try to package it as an issue that concerns everyone when it doesn't concern us at all. Only perhaps in an indirect way, dahil ayaw rin natin ng mga masasama sa gobyerno, pero parehas lang naman silang masama. Pero yung bankrupt type of politics natin is tied to the fact na dito sa ating lipunan, aping-api ang manggagawa. At kapag aping-api ang manggagawa, hindi nakakatindig, hindi nakakalaban, hindi nakaka-confront sa ruling class, ganyang klaseng ruling class ang mahihitamo. Isang ruling class na walang pakialam kung ano ang nakakaapekto lahat sa atin because they don't have any accountability, and the reason why they don't have any accountability ay dahil mahina ang kilusang manggagawa. Direct ang kinalaman. Gusto kong i-contrast itong nangyayari sa bansa natin ngayon sa perhaps several decades ago when the workers movement and the mass movement as a whole, hindi lang naman ang workers, kundi pati ang mga basehang sektor ay relative to us right now ay malakas. Relative, as I say, hindi siya malakas as to take power, pero relative naman sa ngayon na dapang-dapa. Medyo may kalakasan naman ang mass movement noon. Perhaps I would situate it during the time, the 60s and the 70s and even the 80s, when the workers' movement was relatively strong compared to now. Yung mga magsasaka, ganun din. Merong mga pagkilos sa kanila, lumalaban sila at pag lumalabas sila sa kalye, ay bulto-bulto silang lumalabas, umaabot ang tens to hundreds of thousands ng mga nagraraling, mga manggagawa, mga magsasaka na lumalaban sa kanayunan, umaabot pa ng armed struggle. Alam natin ang history ng Pilipinas. So sa time na yan, like in the 60s, our ruling class felt defensive that they were talking about the social volcano. Sinasabi nila yun, and they were so afraid of that social volcano. That was the time na merong rebellion sa countryside, may agrarian unrest, and at the same time, malakas ang workers' movement. They were afraid dun sa social volcano, and what does social volcano mean in their context? Ang ibig nilang sabihin doon, revolution. They were talking about puputok na ang social volcano, and dun sa time na yan na merong resistance from the lower classes, napipilitan ang ruling class natin to present the best among their members. Ruling class din sila, pero at least naman hindi yung parang present crop ng ating mga politicians. It was in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s that we see the likes of Claro Recto, Jokno, Tanyada, Aquino, Laurel, when Philippine Parliament was in its heyday. It was the golden age of Philippine Parliament because our ruling class felt defensive dahil malakas ang workers' movement, malakas ang peasant movement. At that time, they were even afraid that the Hukbalahap in the countryside can easily, led by Luis Taruc, can easily march to Manila. And dahil doon sa kalakasan ng mga basihang sektor, they are forced now to contend with the classes that oppose them, to contend with them by talking about issues. Even the hacenderos who are in our Senate and in our Congress, in the lower house, they are forced to grapple with the agrarian question. They were forced to grapple with the question of how to modernize Philippine society and take it away from its backward state, which is yung backward state na yan, ang ari-arian, ang property ay monopolized lamang ng minority ng mga landlord. At yan ang that forced a situation kung saan ating ekonomiya ay backward din. Nag-e-export lang tayo ng agricultural crops abroad, tapos nagtatanggap ng imports ng mga manufacturing. And our ruling class had to admit na ang cost neto ay ang stratification ng ating bansa. Sobrang-sobra ang power ng mga asindero, mga landlord, at hindi na nakaka-abante ang ating ekonomiya towards industrialization dahil sa monopoly nila sa lupa. At dahil sa monopoly nila sa lupa, kukunti lang ang may kakayanan bumili, walang purchasing power ang karamihan, kaya hindi tayo nakaka-industrialize. And they were talking about land reform, land redistribution, diba? Breaking the property rights of the landlord. And they are part of the ruling class. It's not as if they want to commit harakiri. They just know that there is pressure from below. Hence, they are talking about social volcano. Fast forward to now, walang pakialam ang ruling class. They don't talk anything. They don't talk about issues. They don't talk about our problems. Hindi nila pinag-uusapan ang mataas na cost of living. Hindi nila pinag-uusapan ang mataas na presyo ng bigas. Hindi nila pinag-uusapan ang mababang sweldo. Hindi nila pinag-uusapan ang reforma. They don't even have any plan how to modernize our country and our society, how to modernize our economy. During elections, you will see the kind of political discourse that they will offer. Since they do not talk about issues, what took the place of political discourse would be entertainment. Pag pumunta, sumampa sa stage ang mga politiko natin, may bitbit na mga artista. It is a throwback to the time of the Romans, kung saan ang mga slave owners, ang sinasabi nila ay bread and circus. Ibig sabihin, mag-offer ka lang ng tinapay at circus sa api, we could freely exploit and abuse them. That is the kind of politics that we now have. It's bread and circus. Why bread and circus? Because sa kanila, one will oppose them anyways. Di ba? Wala namang threat ng social volcano. Wala namang armed revolt sa countryside na signifikante. Wala namang malakas na workers' movement na magmamarcha ng tens of thousands to oppose them on the question of social justice. Wala namang ganon. Therefore, they don't feel that insecure. They feel so confident that it has come to the point that they are so confident in their unbridled exercise of power, no other class force can oppose them, that they have totally gone crazy. When you see your leaders going crazy, that is ironically an indication of the level of power that they have. Because if you are that powerful, then you will be beyond reality. Lagpas na yung paa mo sa lupa. Hindi mo kailangan magpaka-logical, hindi mo kailangan magpaka-reasonable, kailangan mo lang, pwede kang mag-abuso, pwede kang mag-cater to your whims and caprices. So you look at our leaders right now na nagiging clowns, and everyone is in agreement na ang Senado natin ay naging circus at lahat dyan ay mga clowns. Andyan si Robin Padilla, si Bato de la Rosa, ang ating House of Representatives ay ganun din. It is an indication of their unbridled exercise of power. Because who will oppose them? Even if they say things na medyo nonsense. Robin Padilla, for once, walang sense na sinabi yan kahit kailan since nanalo sa Senado. Ano yung latest na mga assertions niya? In the 21st century na ang women's rights ay umabante na worldwide, maririnig natin sa number 1 senator of the Republic of the Philippines ang mga katagang sexual rights, ang mga katagang urges ang importante pagdating sa question ng women's rights. Matters that in other countries would already spell their political death. Sa ibang bansa, ang isang parliamentarian, isang senador magsabi ng urges ang importante or may sexual right ang husband sa konteksto na umabante na worldwide ang women's rights, that would have been his political death. But not here in the Philippines. Whatever they say will never result or it will not have any dire consequences for their political careers. They know that they are too powerful right now, so they could act crazy and foolish. Acting crazy and foolish, as we see in the Philippine Senate, as we see in the House of Representatives, and as we see in Malacanang, as we see in Sara Duterte, as we see in Digong Duterte, acting stupid, acting foolish, acting idiotic is already a privilege of the powerful. They have already claimed that kind of privilege. And why? Because those class forces that can effectively oppose them are so weak. And why are those class forces so weak? Because we look back again to our workers. Our workers are so exploited and abused, inaapakan, na they are rendered really politically irrelevant. Hindi nakakatindig as a class. Sa dalawang aspeto, ang sahod natin dito sa Pilipinas ay starvation wages. Saan ka makakitang bansa na i-compare mo na lang ang sahod sa ibang bansa? Dito sa Pilipinas, without any exception, from Region 1 to Region 12, alam naman natin, regional rates ang sahod dito, paiba-iba. Pero they have one common thing. All of those regional rates, they go below the poverty threshold. Below the poverty threshold, I would like to emphasize. Ang ibig sabihin yan, manggagawa ka dito sa Pilipinas, nagsusweldo ka, pero pag natanggap mo ang sweldo, babagsak ka pa rin ang buhay mo below the poverty line. Because ang sweldo na pinakamataas ay nasa NCR, which is 645 pesos. Pinakamataas na yon. Ang ibang mga regions nasa 500, 400, may 300 pa. Pero ang cost of living ng manggagawa ay pumapalo ng 1,207 sa isang konserbatibong calculation ng Ibon Foundation. I would say conservative kasi said na said yun, tipid na 1,207 ang cost of living. Merong sinight na figure si Secretary Pernia ng NEDA way back when he was chief of the NEDA, at ang sabi niya, ang gastusin ay pumapatak sa ordinaryong manggagawa ng 42,000 pesos a month. And you divide that by 26 days, work days, then you will get a figure of 1,615 a day. So the cost of living, we're using the low computation of Ibon Foundation is 1,207. And let's get that higher computation of Secretary Pernia of NEDA, 1,615. Then you will have a range of the cost of living ng mga manggagawa dito sa Pilipinas. That's 1,207 to 1,615 a day. And ang pinakamataas na sweldo dito sa Pilipinas ay nasa National Capital Region, which is 645 pesos a day. So what does that mean? Ang mga manggagawa, pag nagtatrabaho sila, using even the highest rate, which is NCR, ang kanyang sweldo ay mas mababa pa sa 50% ng kanyang pangangailangan. So saan niya ngayon kukunin ng other 50 para mabuhay lamang siya ng payak? Saan niya kukunin yon? Saan niya kukunin? Siyempre, ang gagawin ng manggagawa, hindi niya pwedeng iwasan ang kanyang gastusin. Pwede for a time, pwede siya magtipid, pero hindi siya pwedeng long-term solution kasi pangangailangan yon, basic na pangangailangan ang nakakompute sa 1,200 to 1,600 a day. Ibig sabihin, hindi naman pwede na ang manggagawa ay hindi kumain ng pagkain. Hindi naman pwede niyang tipirin ng pagkain, pwede siya mag-Lucky Me instant noodles araw-araw, pero kailangan niya pa rin kumain. At hindi pwedeng araw-arawin ng Lucky Me instant noodles. Hindi naman pwedeng hindi siya gumamit ng kuryente. Nasa modernong age na tayo na yan ay basic need ng kuryente, hindi ka makaka-function na walang kuryente. So ang manggagawa hindi naman pwede na magkandila na lamang sa bahay. Ang manggagawa hindi pwedeng hindi na magbayad ng tubig sa prime water o kaya sa Maynilan. Mag-iigib na lang siya ng tubig sa ilog. Dati siguro pwede yon kasi hindi pa naman tayo umabot sa isang modern age na pwede pa tayong kumuha ng tubig sa ilog. Pero ngayon, sa modern age, it's really a basic necessity na yung tubig na dumadaloy sa pipeline ng Maynila, ng prime water, ay kailangan mo i-avail. So itong mga bagay-bagay na ito ay non-negotiable para mabuhay ang manggagawa. They have to spend that amount. Ang ibig sabihin na cost of living yan ay actual na ginagastos araw-araw na manggagawa, 1,200 to 1,615. And they could perform a simple experiment. And that is to get a notebook, list down all of their daily expenses, and for a month, and then average it, masusurprise sila. Sigurado ako na lalabas na ang kanilang daily gastusin ay 1,200 to 1,600 a day. So magic, paano ngayon ang 645? Even the NCR rate lang, mas masahol kaysa sa ibang regions na 500, 400, 300. Given na ganon ang kanilang tinatanggap, ano yun? Minamagic ba nila ang kulang? Of course, hindi yan minamagic. Pero araw-araw sila'y nabubuhay sa hope ng milagro. Pero hindi yan pwedeng magicin. Kailangan nilang gumawa ng mga bagay-bagay in order to survive. And yung mga ginagawa ng manggagawa para makasurvive, kailangan niya ng combination of tactics. Not only one alternative source of income, but many. And combine them all. At isa na dyan ay ang pag-overtime araw-araw. Nag-aagawan sa overtime ang mga manggagawa. Dinadagdagan nila ng work hours ang trabaho nila sa loob ng kanilang paggawaan. Up to 4 hours of overtime a day. Meron pang mas masahol kapag truck driver ka, hindi lang 4 hours yan. Gugustuhin mong mag-drive ng 24, 72 hours para makuha mo yung overtime. So, kahit na mag 4 hours overtime ka, that will only take care or address a part doon sa kakulangan ng iyong cost of living. Kailangan mo pa rin maghanap ng ibang pamamaraan. At papasok pa sila, despite the fact na nag-8-hour work na sila, nag-4-hour overtime na sila, maghahanap pa yan ng mga discarding extra income. Kaya hindi uncommon sa manggagawa, and I have witnessed this firsthand, na ang manggagawa na mini-meeting namin, merong isang manggagawang kontraktual doon ay nagtrabaho na ng 12 hours sa pabrika. Tapos paglabas niya sa pabrika, hindi siya makatagal sa meeting kasi magsasampa pa siya sa Lalamove. Magdadrive pa siya ng Lalamove for a few more hours and kulang na yung kanyang tulog para lang makasurvive siya. And even with that, even with overtime, even with extra income, hindi pa rin kulang. Kaya mga manggagawa natin nagre-resort pa rin sa pangungutang. Sinasangla nila ang kanilang ATM at ang ating manggagawa ang the most indebted workers in the entire world. Yan ang sitwasyon ng manggagawa. And of course, last dun sa combination na yon, lalong-lalo na, if all things fail, dahil sa mga emergency na gastos na hindi nila mapipredict, may hospital or emergency na kailangan nilang pagkukuha ng pera, andyan na yung kailangan nilang umasa sa kanilang kamag-anak na nasa abroad. OFW, call a friend from Hong Kong, call a friend from Dubai. So, kaya meron tayong a big part of our population ay overseas workers. Because that is tied to the kind of exploitation that the workers in our country really experience. And then compounding all of these problems na ang sweldo dito ay hindi nakabubuhay, starvation wages, ang mga manggagawa ay, ang karamihan sa kanila, majority of our workers here in the Philippines have no security of tenure. Alam mo, ang contractualisasyon na tinatawag, and I will define what contractualization is, contractualization is actually worse than being simply a temporary worker. Contractualization is worse than 555 or ENDO. Contractualization means merong third party. It is the kind of work arrangement that they call trilateral work arrangement. Hindi ka direct hired. Okay? Ang nag-hire sa'yo, kunwari, quote-unquote hire, ay ang manpower agency. A stranger, an entity that has nothing to do with production, nothing to do with business of the entity that really uses the labor power of the worker. It is a total stranger, totally useless, and ang only function ng isang manpower agency is to be useless. Basically that. In order to provide an artificial divide between the worker and the entity that they work for. They are the middlemen of our labor force. Imbis na makadirekta na makapag-deal ang manggagawa doon sa kanyang pinagtatrabuhan, siya ay gumigitna at nagkukunwari na siya ang employer. On paper. And everything is on paper. Not sa isang substantial na katotohanan, kundi realidad na created on paper. On paper, ang manpower agency ang nag-quote-unquote hire. Kasi pag pumunta ka sa isang workplace at nag-apply ka doon, hindi ka tatanggapin at ida-direct ka sa isang manpower agency na totally useless and its only function is to be totally useless. And its only use is actually to be a middleman. Doon mo isa-submit ang iyong resume so that on paper, ang in-applyan mo ay ang manpower agency. Tapos, on paper, sila rin ang tumanggap sa iyo. Pero guess what? Once na natapos na yung papel na yon, saan ka nila ipapadala? Ipabalik ka nila doon sa kung saan ka nag-apply. Doon sa entity na kung saan ka talaga magtatrabaho. So kalokohan. It is really just simulating the act of hiring on paper. And then, on paper, ipapalabas nila na ang payroll ay payroll ng agency. Again, on paper. Kasi ang pera saan nanggaling? Nanggaling doon sa entity kung saan nagtatrabaho manggagawa. So this manpower agency, this third party, this parasite has no purpose at all except to provide an artificial middleman arrangement for the purpose of cutting the worker off from the entity that they work for. So that that entity, that business, that they offer their labor power to, and that entity who uses their labor power and profits from their labor power can now wash its hands and say, hindi ako employer ng manggagawang yan. So the effect really is for that business or establishment to deny employer-employee relationship, and you will have an absurd situation wherein a worker can work for decades, 20 years and 30 years, to a business entity that will say, siya ay walang legal personality sa akin, that business entity will say, he's not my employee. Absurd. So much absurd, unreasonable, and illogical. And yet, majority of our workers, and I would say more than 80%, based on my experience, of workers in this country are contractually hired. Contractualization arrangement, trilateral arrangement, which is even worse than 555. 555 is simply temporary work. Workers being hired by through temporary arrangements, pero at least sa 555 may direktang link ang manggagawa doon sa business establishment. Directly hired siya, ginagawa lang siyang temporary. And since may direct link at hindi siya manpower hired, at ginawa lang siyang temporary, at least pwede siyang magkaso doon sa entity kung saan siya ay nagtatrabaho dahil may direct link. Pwede niyang i-question ang kanyang temporary employment at sasabing regular worker siya. Pero sa isang manggagawa na nahulog sa contractualization, nahulog sa trilateral work arrangement, hindi siya pwedeng magkaso because circular ang argument. Hindi siya pwedeng magkaso sa akin kasi wala kaming employer-employee relationship. And that's 80% of our workers whose security of tenure is denied. And if your security of tenure is denied, ang pinaka-purpose talaga niyan para ang manggagawa ay wag mag-organisa into unions so that they cannot negotiate for higher wages and benefits. So the result is we have an entire population of workers that are really exploited and abused, inapakan. And ang effect niyan, kapag na-render na ang mga manggagawa because of their exploitation, oppression, and abuse, the effect of that is they will be depoliticized. Depoliticize sila for one very important reason. They don't even have the time to be drawn into political action. They would not even have the time to ponder and contemplate their own oppression. And importante yung to ponder and contemplate your oppression because at least if you have time to think that you're being oppressed and you're being exploited, at least the time to think that way, the time to realize that, at least that can be a start for you to fight back. Pero in this case, because of the level and the depths of oppression that our workers are experiencing, they don't even have the luxury of that time to ponder and contemplate that they're being exploited. Much less would they have the time and the energy to talk among themselves and organize. Much less would they have the time and energy to fight back. So in contrast to the time when there was a social volcano, there is no social volcano right now. Because our workers have no time, they have to devote their entire day to survival tactics, to mixing several survival tactics just in order to feed their families. Nawalan na sila ng significance sa pampulitikang buhay natin. Isang buong uri ng lipunan na siya sana ang may naturalesa na i-oppose ang ruling class because that's what the workers are in history. In the history of the entire world, I would say, workers have been at the forefront of every social reform that has been won in our society. You talk about 8-hour workday, you talk about rest day, you talk about democracy even. It is always a function of a workers' movement that can fight back, that can check the ruling class, that can win significant victories in order to make society more humane, relatively more humane. Because without the workers, capitalism has started na napaka-brutal na system. Employing child labor, talagang sweatshop conditions sa isang workplace, and politically, walang karapatan, walang freedoms. But because the workers fought and achieved victories, relatively, at least, ang kapitalismong yan, which is a brutal system, relatively ay na-soften na mga victories ng workers. And therefore, the workers have a role in changing society, in fighting for their rights, and winning those fights. They become the cornerstone of all of our rights. They become the cornerstone of freedom and democracy. They become the cornerstone of human rights in our society. But in a society wherein the workers are rendered insignificant and irrelevant politically, imagine mo ang effect nun. Ang effect nun is what we have. A society that is barbaric, that is turned barbaric. A society that can create the Dutertes. Sa lipunan natin, nag-create na tayo ng mga ganyan, mga barbaric people, abusado, overturning even our own values. Saan ka na nakakitang lipunan na ang isang ex-president ay can just march his way into the Senate and tell everyone in the Senate and admit that I alone am responsible for the killings during the drug war. And there is no consequence. Walang consequence sa kanya. You know why Duterte can be so bold in declaring that? Because he knows our institutions are useless and inutile. Alam niyang institutions natin are paralyzed, cannot do anything against him, cannot even render justice. Our justice system is useless in rendering justice to the elite. Alam na alam niya yun. Alam na alam niya na sobrang powerful ng mga ruling class, that it has come to the point that they can kill if they want to kill. They can institute a reign of impunity, and they do not have anything to fear about retribution or punishment or jail time. Anyway, pag nakulong naman sila, pinapakawala naman sila ng kapwa nila ruling class at kapwa nila elite. Dahil ang institution natin dito ay mahina. A society that has really been brutalized by the abuses of the ruling class, where killings are normalized, oppression becomes normalized, plunder becomes normalized. How normal is confidential funds? Hindi lang naman si Sara Duterte yan, pati si Bongbong Marcos ay confidential funds. That's normalized corruption. It's giving billions and billions of pesos for them to spend any way they want. So, without the workers, with the workers' movement being weak, with the workers being rendered politically inactive, without them being drawn into political action, because in the meantime, they have to look after their own survival because they are so oppressed in a society where we oppress our workers, we will have the kind of society that oppresses all of us. Again, let me hark back to the opening statement that what and how we treat the workers, that's the kind of society that we're gonna get. So magtataka pa kayo kung bakit ganyan ang politika natin, na naging clown, naging katawa-tawa ang ating mga elite. And the solution, a big solution, would really be to empower our workers. That's why I am in the labor movement. I have already abandoned my profession as a lawyer in order to devote myself to building the workers' movement. Magtataka kayo kung bakit. Hindi naman ako mahilig sa charity, hindi naman ako do-gooding. It has something to do with changing society. Because when we talk about changing society, it is not an abstract concept. It is about addressing the roots of our oppression. And we can only address the roots of our oppression if we build that class force that will fight against oppression, and that is our workers. And therefore, we fight for a fair deal, a better deal for the workers. For me, when we fight for livable wage, it's not just about the wage. For me, when we fight against contractualization, it's not just about contractualization. It is ultimately about making our society better, more humane, without the ruling class getting or claiming the privilege of abuse of power, without them being corrupt. It is ultimately tied to good governance, which is one cornerstone of your organization. We will have better leaders, we will have more democracy and protection for our rights. So we want to change society and we want to make a better society. We have to unleash the liberating power of the workers. Yan lang. Maraming salamat.
All right. Thank you for that comprehensive and wonderful discussion, Attorney Lo. So I hope may natutuhan ng ating audience. Let's now proceed on our open forum. So everyone here who have questions to ask, you may type it on our chat box or you may raise your hands. May tanong ba kayo? Yes, Sir James.
Ayan. Sige. Naririnig po ba ako?
Yes po.
Ayun. So, ayun. Bakit na ka? Ayun. Una sa pasalamat kay Attorney Espiritu, no? Hindi talaga ako eto na lang, no, personally, no. Hindi kami nagkamali sa pagboto sa sa inyo, no, last election ng 2022. Together with Walden Bello po, ay Kali Guzman po, no. Talagang highly principled at ideological leader po na kinakailangan talaga ng bansa po natin. Ito lang po yung katanungan ko po, no. Gusto ko po ang lalim po talaga ng naging diskusyon mo natin, no? Talagang labas po ng legality yung naging diskusyon po eh. Gusto ko pa sana tignan po sa sa larger scale po ng political economy po sana natin. Isa po kasi sa pinupuno din po ng ating mga manggagawa. Yung mga sa global na
pero dahil kulang ang information
Nawala ka, James.
Kasi mga contributing factor yung mga condition ng ng IMF, International Monetary Fund.
So, Sir James, nandito ka pa po ba? Nawawala ka po. Okay, so while we're waiting for Sir James, meron ka ba rito na may tanong pa po? Yes.
Good evening po. Am I audible?
Yes, Clark.
Okay, thank you so much po. Good evening. My name is Clark Matthew Enogadan from Dr. Yang's Colleges Incorporated. Attorney Espiritu, you have been a staunch advocate for workers' rights, notably your work with Buklurang Manggagawang Pilipino to push for living wages and better labor policies in the Philippines. My question po is, as a young person preparing to enter the workforce, how can we actively support and participate in initiatives that aim to address systemic issues like contractualization and like unfair labor practices and at an early stage in our careers po?
You will face that. You will face these very same problems. If you become part of the workforce, it doesn't matter kung saan ka na-graduate, it doesn't matter kung anong posisyon mo, you will face the problem of contractualization because it is a very prevalent employment arrangement in our country. In other countries, meron din namang mga trilateral work arrangement. Pero dito talaga medyo exaggeration. Kasi dito ginawa talaga ang majority ng manggagawa natin contractual eh. Sa ibang bansa, meron din namang problema sa wage. Pero dito talaga ginawang starvation wages eh. Talaga ibang levels ng oppression dito. And you, even if you're educated, even if you graduated in good schools or in college, you will face the same problems. Hindi na yan isang bagay na will only be limited to the factory worker. Kahit office professional workers, magkakaroon ng ganyang problem. And I would just like you to embrace your identity as a worker, to have class consciousness when you become part of the workforce. We need intellectual workers like you to embrace your class identity and have that kind of a class consciousness so that from within the workers' movement itself, you could contribute your own training in school, your intellectuals. You can organize, you can fight for your rights as a worker. So hindi kailangan from the outside, because from within, once kayo naging part ng workforce, haharapin nyo yung the same type of oppression. And tandaan nyo lang na walang privileged worker. Okay? Wala. Lahat ay api. Kaya marami rin sigurong mga kabataan ngayon mapupunta sa call center. And ito ang pinaka-problema namin parate na-encounter namin sa pag-organize. It seems as if we could, relatively speaking, we could organize more sa mga pabrika. Kasi kaysa sa mga office workers like call center agents. You know why? Because merong feeling, which is I think wrong, na kaming mga nasa office, naka-aircon kami, privileged na yung aming employment. So hindi na kami lalaban. Baka mawalan pa kami ng trabaho. Yung ganong klaseng attitude, pwede bang basagin natin yan? Kasi lahat api. At walang privileged worker dito sa Pilipinas. Sabihin ba natin mas mataas ang sweldo mo, hindi pa rin nakabubuhay yan at kailangan mo pa rin mag-extra hours as extra income. Kailangan mo pa rin mag-endure ng abuse. So if you do enter the workforce, embrace your identity as a worker. Minsan dinidiklas yung identity na yan eh. Yung mga nasa aircon sasabihin nila hindi kami manggagawa, empleyado kami. Ay isa if hindi ka manggagawa kung tawagin mo lang sarili mong empleyado. Manggagawa ka. Manggagawa ang karamihan sa atin. And we must embrace that identity and fight with that identity. And we must develop our class consciousness. Yan lang, and it will go a long way. If workers who are trained in our colleges or intellectuals can embrace that class consciousness, malaking bagay yun.
Ayan. Thank you, Mr. Clark, for that question. I think goods na po si Sir James. Sir James?
Ayun, okay na. Hindi na ako lag. Ayun.
Okay na po.
Ayun po, yun po ulit, attorney, yung tanong ko po, no? Ay yung sa global na aspeto po, di ba? Malaki po talaga yung kinakaharap po natin pagdating sa utang sapagkat yung kahirapan din po ng bansa natin, maliban lang din po talaga sa hindi maayos na pagpapatakbo ng ating mga nakaupo sa pwesto ngayon, yung mga organisasyon, mga IOs po, no, kagaya po ng IMF at ng World Bank, halimbawa na lang po sa IMF, yung kanilang mga structural adjustment program, di ba po, na akala nila nakakatulong po, no, pero mas mabibigat pa po natin yung utang natin, no. Bilang isa pong mula sa organisasyon po, sa labor movement po natin, ano ho ba yung pwede nating maging hakbang po pagdating po sa mga utang po ng bansa natin? Kasi bilang manggagawa po, no, talaga ang bigat po ng buwis po talaga natin at mas mahirap makabili ng mga bagay na gusto po talaga natin o ma-pursue yung mga gusto natin sa buhay natin. Kung ang laki po talaga ng binabawas po sa mga sweldo po, no, or salary po ng ating mga manggagawa. Paano po ba natin po mapapaliit po or ano po ba yung proper response po talaga natin sa lumulubong utang po natin? Yan lamang po, attorney. Thank you po.
James, historical ang struggle against odious debts. Lahat ng mga, hindi naman legitimate ang kalakhan ng mga utang na yan. At may existing at matagal na laban against yung mga odious debts na yan na meron ding responsibilidad ang mga creditor, ang mga lender. May responsibilidad sila na pinupush nila yan na alam naman nila hindi makakabayad at alam naman nila hindi ginagamit para sa benepisyo ng bansang yan. Pero gusto lang talaga nila itali sa utang ang mga bansang to. They are really complicit in the unsustainability of the debts. And therefore, there is really a call to cancel all those debts, to make them responsible, and even to audit yung mga outrightly odious na debts. And I would say it is a struggle that has been long-standing at binitbit din yan ng workers' movement, nung kalakasan ng workers' movement. And, workers must embrace that struggle. Must embrace that struggle and many more. Must embrace the struggle against all these neoliberal policies na sinabi mo. Yan yung laman ng structural adjustments, di ba? At tinindigan ng mga manggagawa yan. And sa tingin ko, walang reason bakit hindi niya titindigan. Just because problema natin ng wage and contractualization. In fact, ang ating layon ay maging political force ang manggagawa para bitbitin niya ang issue ng lipunan. Hindi lang ng sektor, hindi lang yung economic or economistic demands niya, kundi yung entire pakete, ang entire sistema kung saan siya inaapi. So, kailangan niyang tindigan ng maraming issues tulad ng debt, tulad ng economy, and present an alternative economy na proletarian ang vision. Yan yung reason kung bakit tinatawag namin ang campaign namin na manggagawa naman. It's not really about just pushing for the economic demands of the workers. It's actually being able to intervene in all issues of society, but in the point of view or in the perspective of the worker. Bitbitin niya ang perspektibo ng manggagawa para sagutin ang lahat ng problemang yan. Pagdating sa utang, ano bang perspektibo ng manggagawa? Mangutang tayo ng mga umangutang hanggang sa maging unsustainable? Mag-tax tayo ng mga may hirap instead ng mga mayayaman? So kailangan ng workers mag-intervene sa lahat ng issues niya dahil importante ang perspektiba ng proletaryo, ang perspektiba ng kanyang uri para ma-resolve ang lahat ng mga problema sa ating lipunan. And I would say that aside from simply just intervening politically, importante na dumulo ito sa capture of political power. Because power being held by the elite, by the property owners, yan mismo ang source ng ating problema. If we want to have some long-term solution, we cannot avoid the question of power. We cannot avoid that. We cannot simply be reduced into voters every election that we will vote the next batch of elite, the next batch of haciendero, the next batch of plunderers and human rights violators that will rule us. Eventually, and we cannot evade this. We must enter into that question and answer that question of political power. And political power must be captured by those who are being oppressed, led by the workers.
Ayan. Thank you for that question, Sir James. Meron pa po bang ibang gusto magtanong? Again, you may type po sa chat box. Ayan. So, meron po tayong question sa chat box from Mr. John Napoleon. When was the last time po, or if meron pong presidency na yung workforce and laborers were at its peak throughout the Philippine history? Like less oppression, problems, taken advantage, more rights, etc.
It doesn't mean less oppressed, no? Pero magtingnan mo lang sa kasaysayan natin, ang strength ng labor movement, kung paano yan nag-grow, even at the turn of the 20th century, the turn of the century, malakas ang workers' movement natin. Kahit nung time pa nila ni Isabelo de los Reyes, ni Dominador Gomez, when workers are able to mobilize in the tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, when workers were organized along industrial lines. Ang mga union nun ay hindi establishment-based, kundi kung anong industriya, merong isang union, merong lithographers union, mas malawak ang mga organisasyon. Even early on, even yung pagdating ng mga Amerikano, relatively mas malakas yung workers movement noon kaysa sa ngayon. And through the years, I think in the 1930s, ang isang manggagawa na si Crisanto Evangelista was the founder of the Communist Party of the Philippines. And PKP pala, Partido Komunista ng Pilipinas. And that actually qualitatively raised the struggle of the workers na instead na limitado lang sa economic, meron ng political demand, and meron ng direction towards the capture of power. This movement has become the ancestor actually really of all revolutionary resistance that we have seen since the 1930s until the 60s and the 70s, the 80s, and even until today. Kaso medyo embers na lang ngayon, medyo mahina ngayon. So, noong panahon, relatively mas malakas kaysa ngayon talaga, you will perceive the weakness relatively of the workers' movement. Really perceive it. It is unmistakable. Di ba? It really is. Punta ka lang sa manggagawa ngayon, pag-organisa ka, ang una nilang reaction is fear. Fear to be organized. Kaya nga, kapag sa ganyang sitwasyon, ang lalabas talaga niyan, mga false messiah. False messiah na magti-take advantage dun sa desperation and hopelessness. False messiahs like Tulfo. Tulfo became popular sa support ng workers. Kami na nag-organisa sa bukluran ng mga manggagawang Pilipino, kami na mismo nag-organisa sa kanila directly in order for them to fight against their oppression. Pero sasabihin pa rin ng mga manggagawa, isumbong na lang natin kay Tulfo. So, rife na rife ang ngayong sitwasyon sa mga false messiahs. And it is really a symptom of how weak the workers' movement is right now in the Philippines relative to all the other period in our history. And I would say ang pinakamalakas na period ng workers' movement siguro no mga since 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, well into the 90s, malakas ang workers' movement. Pagdating ng dekada 90, 2000, puro decline, puro padaos-dos. Gawa rin yan ng epekto ng globalization. Kung saan talagang binasag ang ating manufacturing. Dati may manufacturing pa tayo, may konting industrial base pa tayo kung saan tens of thousands of workers ang nagtatrabaho. May garments industry tayo na kung saan yan ang base ng malakas na workers movement, ang garments industry natin. Nabinasag yan ng globalization. At ang mga workforce natin ay lumiit ng instead of tens of thousands, malaki na yung 100 workers sa isang establishment. Tapos naging service-oriented pa yung ating industry. Malaking bagay ang naging effect niyan sa paghina ng workers movement. So since the middle of the 90s, year 2000 and until now, medyo padaos-dos.
So I think we have another question from Mr. Araneta. So sabi niya po, good evening, Attorney Lo. It is an honor and privilege to propound questions to you. Needless to state that you are familiar with labor laws, may I ask a question to you? What is the control test in determining the existence of an employer-employee relationship? And how can we distinguish between rules as guidelines and rules as fixing methods?
Okay. Control test would be the power to hire, to fire, to pay wages, to discipline, to manage the worker. And I would say that is a very superficial test. That's the reason why using this control test, they have transferred employer-employee relationship from the establishment that really makes use of labor power. They have transferred that relationship to the manpower agency because the manpower agency can simulate on paper each and every item of that control test. Again, I'm using the word simulate. The manpower agency can simulate the power to hire by reflecting on paper that they were the ones who hired, and simulate the power to pay wages by reflecting on paper that yung salaries, ang payroll ay nanggagaling sa kanila, all on paper. But if you look at the real and fundamental reason or ground kung bakit ang manggagawa ay isang empleyado, it's not just the control test. The control test is just a manifestation of something more essential. It's just a manifestation. It cannot be a standalone. Na as long as na checklist mo yung control test, that's it. It has become a tool, in fact, in order to deny the workers of their security of tenure kasi kayang isimulate on paper lahat. Even power to discipline, ilagay mo lang on paper na ang pumirma ng notice to explain at ang pumirma ng notice of dismissal ay manpower agency. Pero ang pinaka-fundamental reason na kung saan manifestasyon lang lahat ito ay dalawa lang. Dalawa lang. Ang pinaka-essential talaga ng employer-employee relationship ay ganito. Sino ba ang gumagamit ng labor power ng worker? Pag tinanong mo yan, sino ang gumamit ng labor power ng worker, siya dapat ang employer. Siya ang gumagamit ng labor power ng worker. Di ba? Sino ang nagpa-profit or nakikinabang sa labor power ng worker? Kung ang business entity na yan ang nakikinabang at nagpa-profit sa paggamit ng labor power ng worker, siya ang employer. The control test would simply be a manifestation of that very essential reason kung bakit may employer-employee relationship. Diba? Tanggalin mo yung fundamental reason, ang fundamental ground na yan, and you just retain the manifestation, which is the control test, you could easily cheat the workers. Diba? Gamitin mo yung external manifestation, tapos ibigay mo ngayon sa manpower agency, then you could deny the workers yung totoong employer-employee relationship na hindi dapat sa manpower agency yan, naka-lodge. Dapat yan naka-lodge doon sa business owner kung saan sila nagtatrabaho.
Ayan, thank you po sa mga nag-a-ask ng questions. How about the others po? Baka may tanong kayo riyan and nahihiya lang. Huwag na po kayo mahiya. Please, magtanong lang po kayo. So, any other questions pa po from the body? Yes po. Mr. De Guzman or Mr. Guzman?
Ay, hello po. Good evening po.
Hello
Yes.
po.
Good evening po, Attorney Spiritu. Nais ko pong magpasalamat sa isang makabuluhan po na webinar regarding po sa karapatan ng mga manggagawa. Nagustuhan ko rin po yung opening statement kanina na patungkol po sa konsepto ng happiness or eudaimonia ni Aristotle patungkol po sa estado. Sa totoo lang po, sa palagay ko po, makakatulong po itong webinar na ito sa pag-aaral ko po ng social critical theory sa mga susunod po na semester po. Ito pong tanong ko po isa generic question na naman po. Isa po sa mga philosophers na narinig ko po ay si Antonio Gramsci. At isa nga po sa ideas niya ay yung role ng intellectuals na kung saan marapat daw po na mag-advocate sila ng isang conscious na political engagement. Ito po yung tanong ko po, bilang mga kabataan po, paano po kaya kami makatutulong sa mga manggagawa kahit sa maliit na paraan lang po? Yun lang po, Attorney. Thank you po.
Okay, yan ang aking formula actually. Ang formula ko is ngayon na bagsak at talagang luhod ang mga manggagawa and hirap na to be drawn into political action, and they cannot play their role, and I would say historical role, to be the liberator of society. Not yet, I would say. Importante na mga kabataan ang maging mapuwersa para sa demokrasya sa ating lipunan. At ang mga kabataan tulad mo nyo ay may time mag-isip, mag-aral, maging kritikal at mag-question. At sa kasaysayan ng buong mundo, parating nagiging herald ng paglakas, ng kilusan ng pagbabago, ang pagtindig ng kabataan as an initial force. Once na na-radicalize ang mga kabataan, dahil sa kanilang kapasidad mag-isip, mag-aral, maging kritikal, at huwag tumanggap ng lahat ng mga lumang sistema, lumang pamamaraan, at sa kanilang pagsuka sa mga lumang pamamaraan at aspirasyon para sa bago, once na tumindig ang kabataan, nagiging herald yan ng generalized push towards change ng buong lipunan na pwedeng katatampukan na ng mga manggagawa. And it's always a combination of the students fighting a democratic transformation of society, and then the workers having seen that there is now a space in the fight for democracy to also fight for their own rights initially, and then fight for the rights of society for pagtatransform ng society. Yan ang kombinasyon. Kaya nga dito sa Pilipinas, parati ako nakikipag-usap sa kabataan. Kasi gusto kong himukin ang kabataan na tumindig kayo, ang henerasyon ninyo ay tinatawag ng mga challenges ng iyong henerasyon. Tinatawag na para i-oppose itong mga nangyayaring kalokohan sa politika, ang pag-rise ng Marcos at Duterte at ng Trapo at ng political dynasty at ng mga artista, pero hindi lang politika. Tindigan nyo rin ang social justice agenda na kakonektado rin sa politika. Tindigan ninyo ang issues ng wage, ng contractualization. Kumbaga, maging force kayo for change. And you cannot be a force for change unless you embrace the workers. You embrace the issues of the farmers, the oppressed. That's what the first quarter storm generation did. The first quarter storm generation did not only oppose Marcos, they did not only fight against authoritarian rule, they did not only confine themselves to the political aspects. Tied to that will be for them to also push for land reform. They fought for the farmers. Part of that is they also organized the workers in the factories. Yung Latundeña strike na yan ang nagbasag ng katahimikan ng martial law. Tingnan mo kung sinong organizer dyan. Yan si Edgar Hobson na isang student leader. Isa yan sa mga nag-organisa ng Latundeña strike. So students, merging their force with the oppressed. I could only answer that question, not the small little things na pwedeng gawin, but I could only tell you about your significance as a sector, as a force in our society. And I hope kayong mga Gen Z, kayong mga kabataan, ay dahil tinatawag kayo, challenge kayo ng kasaysayan, which is only in rare moments of history na ang kailangan ng kabataan ay tumindig. At isa yon sa tingin ko. And I really just hope that you will discharge the challenge of history admirably and well, just like the first quarter storm generation. Ang ibig ko sabihin, be political. Be drawn into political action. At paglaban ninyo ang demokrasya. Huwag kayong manahimik.
Ayan, nakakatuwa naman, no? Very active ang ating body. So, may dalawang questions sa chat box natin. Una muna po yung kay Sir Apec. So, good evening po, Attorney Lo. Question ko po, mayroon po bang ongoing na bill that would strengthen workers' rights sa ating Kongreso na maaaring suportahan o i-advocate ng mga organization tulad ng YAKAL?
Okay, meron. Medyo bibilisan ko lang because I have to speak I'm campaigning actually in Ormoc. So I just told the organizers meron pa akong online. So I will follow. Medyo nahihirapan na si Galio di magpahaba ng kanyang talk para lang hintayin ako. Okay lang ba na 2 more questions na lang? With this one and then the other one. Okay lang ba?
Okay lang po.
Okay lang. Okay, so presently may laban ng mga manggagawa, ang workers movement. And nagko-coalition kami. Meron kaming wage coalition. Andiyan ang TUCP, KMU, BMP, and nagkaisa Labor Coalition. Pinaglalaban namin ang pagtaas ng sahod. Legislative wage increase. Yan ngayon ay nagpo-foot dragging ang House of Representatives dyan na hawak ni Martin Romualdez dahil itong Marcos administration, they don't want to raise wages. Merong laban pa against contractualization. Magkaroon ng security of tenure law. And ito ay to follow. So it's really good that organizations like yours identify yourselves with this struggle. Be like, again, the first quarter storm generation na hindi lang nako-confine sa political questions ng Marcos at Duterte, but you should embrace a social justice agenda. Merging the two, political reform and a social justice agenda, then the youth of today can really bring forth a liberating message, and that's what we really need right now. A sector or a section in our society that can become a market and can become a force for a liberating message na kinakailangan natin as against the dynasties and the Trapos. Okay, pwede bang last question?
Ayan po. For our last question, meron po sa chat box, but can I please ask Ms. Lay Antonio to open her mic to personally ask the question? Ms. Lay, are you here? Lay.
Bakit mo ako tinawag?
Ikaw na magtanong ng question mo. Kaya mo yan.
Hello po, attorney. So, my question po, ay, context po muna. So, basahin ko dito. In the Philippines po, one of the prevalent issues with regards to standing up for labor rights is that workers or yung mga mamamayan natin mismo, they put the blame on their co-workers when facing issues sa workplace. Parang crab mentality, ganon. Like, we're fighting among ourselves and ignore the bigger picture, which is that the people we should hold accountable are those people in positions of power or higher ups, ganon. So how can we guide people in shifting their mindset po na tignan nila yung mas malaking issue na hindi dapat natin hinahatak yung isa't isa pababa. And rather, we should all gather and hold corporations accountable.
Okay, a very good question, and I would even paint a bleaker picture than simply crab mentality. And it's not confined to the workers. All the oppressed classes of our society are suffering what I call a Stockholm Syndrome. Ano yung Stockholm Syndrome? Alam nyo ba yung kwento ni Patty Hearst that was abducted by the Symbionese Liberation Army, and then she grew to sympathize with her abductors and kidnappers because she had no way out, and even joined them and even justified their actions. That's the kind of syndrome that we are suffering as a people. The oppressed loving their own oppression, loving their own oppressors. Workers voting for capitalists, the landless poor voting for the land grabber, the senderos, the oppressed voting for their oppressor. That is a conditioned response because of the oppression. When you are oppressed and desperate and you don't have any hope that you will be able to free yourself and liberate yourself from your condition, when you are rendered hopeless, totally no hope, then that will result into you, whether you're an individual or a social group, into you embracing your oppression. Because that's the only way you could make your oppression more tolerable, perhaps, to justify it, to make it tolerable. Diba kapag ang babae na abuso ng asawa, darating yan sa punto na i-justify niya ang abuso ng kanyang asawa. Hindi yan dahil gusto niya yung abuso, pero talagang yan ang conditioned response ng isang oppressed na individual. Yan din ang conditioned response ng isang oppressed people na maghihilahan, magsaside with the oppressor. Hindi lang yan hilahan for the sake of hilahan. Halimbawa, mag-organisa ka ng union. Walang akong experience na nag-organisa kami ng union na walang magchuchuchu. Na manggagawa. I-chuchuchu niya, i-report niya sa management. It's not just because may crab mentality, kundi yan ay nakakondisyon sa utak niya na kailangan niyang mag-side sa oppressor. Kasi kapag hindi siya mag-side sa oppressor, ang conditions of existence niya ay mapapahamak siya. Kailangan niyang salbayin ang kanyang sarili, so again, survival, by siding with the oppressor. Yan din ang survival instinct ng kapag i-apply mo sa entire society. Para ka makakapag-survive bilang ape, yakapin mo yung trapong nag-oppress sa'yo. Kasi kahit papano, makakabibigyan ka ng akap, ng ayuda, ng conditional cash transfer. Otherwise, pag hindi mo yakapin ang iyong oppressor, di ba? Wala ka noon, madidihado ka. Conditions of existence of the oppressed Filipino masses, every day they encounter that kind of a situation where if they do not embrace their oppressor, mapapahamak sila lalo. They encounter that in the workplace, sa pabrika, they encounter that sa opisina, they encounter that sa eskwelahan, they encounter that sa pamilya. We encounter that in every level of our existence. Our conditions of existence are like that. Therefore, that kind of a situation generates a culture of not fighting, and not only not fighting, opposing those or mocking those who fight. Di ba? Dito sa Pilipinas, pagka lumalaban ka sa tama, ikaw pa ang imamak at ituton. Like ilang beses ko nang naririnig na kami nakikipaglaban para sa all of these things, ang magtutont sa amin ay sasabihan kami, hindi ka naman mananalo eh. So the classic language of someone who is oppressed and hopeless. He will criticize you not because you are wrong. Hindi naman nila sasabihin mali sinasabi mo eh. Diba? They will despise you not because you're wrong. They will despise you because you are weak. And they are also weak. So if only for them to survive our common weakness, they feel the need to embrace with the strong, yung oppressor nila, to identify with their oppressor, to taunt those na fight against oppression. And it is societal-wide. Workplace, and even our politics is like that. And the only way na mababago yan is actually na palakasin natin ang ating mga sarili at win victories. Small victories leading to bigger victories until masisira yung stranglehold ng mga oppressor natin sa ating utak, sa ating emosyon, sa ating buong katauhan. May stranglehold sila pati mismo sa ating psikolohiya, sa ating minds. They control our minds. But there is really some there is a magical effect ang mga cracks na makikreate mo. Create a crack, meaning to say, magpakita ka that you're brave and bold and consistent. Meron lang silang makitang brave, bold, and consistent. And isama mo na dyan ang mga mumunting panalo. It creates a crack. Magkaroon lang ng crack ang edifice ng control na ito ng mga oppressor. Bubulusok din yan. Bubulusok din yan. So, laban, maging consistent sa laban, at wag yung mga iilan dyan na medyo abante, wag sumurrender, diba? Despite the taunts and the mockery, wag sumurrender. And that's the only way na magkakaroon ng crack ang entire edifice of control ng oppressor.
Ayan. Thank you, Miss Lei. So, I know na yung iba rito is may questions pa and marami pang gustong itanong, but sadly, that is our last question na po.
Thank you. Paalam na ako. Maraming salamat.
Ayun.
Kailangan ko nang magsalita sa kwan. Okay lang?
Ay, okay po. Sige po. Thank you po, attorney.
Thank you.
So to formally close this event, thank you everyone. Yung mga questions nyo, marami pa tayong next webinar. So if may tanong pa kayo, you can attend the upcoming webinars then. And to formally close our event, may I call on Ms. Chloe Nicole Mendoza, the Center Leader for Human Rights and Social Justice, for our closing remarks.
Okay. So before ko ipahatid sa inyo yung closing remarks ko, of course, we have to reward Attorney Luke Espirito his certificate. Ayan. Certificate of Recognition to Renacio Luke S. Espirito Jr. for sharing valuable wisdom and the webinar titled Sigaw ng Masa, Karapatan ng Manggagawa in celebration of Yakal Human Rights Consciousness Week titled Kilalanin ng Karapatan, Kilos Kabataan. Given this, 14th of December 2024 via Google Meet. So kahit wala na si Attorney Luke Espirito, can we still give him a clap reaction, guys? Ayan. So, para sa closing remark, una sa lahat, of course, kahit wala na si Attorney Luke Espirito, I still want to extend my thankfulness sa kanya sa pagpapaunlak sa aming imbitasyon bilang maging speaker sa webinar na ito. On behalf of Yakal Pilipinas, we are very honored to have such an inspiring and knowledgeable person to talk about the rights of the Filipino workers. Alam kong kagaya ko ay marami rin kayong natutunan sa meeting na ito. Talagang mahalagang pag-usapan yung mga ganitong paksa at ma-emphasize na karapatang pantao ang karapatan ng mga manggagawa at lahat tayo ay apektado kapag inabuso ang karapatang ito. Kaya talagang may need to seek an urgent action to address these issues by the government officials because it's their job and responsibility to protect the rights of their people. And kasama sa masa ang manggagawa, kaya hindi pwedeng pabayaan lamang ang mga ito. At mas lalong hindi pwedeng patahimikin sa oras na nag-speak up sila patungkol sa oppression na nararanasan nila. Dahil biktima na nga sila ng sistema, yung maliit na sahod, contractualization, exploitation and abuse, mas lalo pa bang aapakan ng karapatan nila sa pamamagitan ng pagpapatahimik sa kanila? Hindi dapat ganon. Kaya nagpapasalamat kami sa inyong pagdalo at pakikibahagi sa diskusyon na ito dahil mahalagang lahat tayo ay makatamo ng kaalaman patungkol dito. Dahil tayo mismo ay kasama sa pakikibaka na ito. Kaya maraming salamat po sa presence nyo sa webinar na ito. And of course, I'm gonna use this opportunity rin to promote our upcoming webinars. You can follow Yakal Pilipinas sa Facebook para sa mga updates po. Kasi marami pa kaming mga exciting webinars for Human Rights Consciousness Week. So yeah, back to you, Aki.
Thank you so much, Miss Chloe Nicole Valenzuela Mendoza. So, before po tayo mag-leave, paalala lang po namin ng evaluation form that will serve as your attendance. And kapag po nag-answer kayo ng evaluation form, dito nyo rin po makukuha ang inyong e-certificates. So, please, pa-screenshot na lang po and accomplish it on your availability. And, should we have an photo op? Keri po ba mag-open cam for photo op? Ayan. So, who can screenshot our meeting po for photo op?
Ako na lang, Aki.
Okay, sige, go. Ikaw na rin ba magbilang, Chloe?
Okay.
Ayan, thank you.
1, 2, 3. Wait, isa pa po. Change layout ko lang. Ayan. 1, 2, 3. One more. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Ayan, thank you. It has been a productive night. So goodbye, everyone. We're hoping to see you sa next webinars namin. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Ingat po. Maraming salamat.
Thank you po. God bless po.